Hey kids, how you doing? It's a beautiful morning here, but I'm pretty fucking bored, you know? Got nothing to do. I might watch some Frank clone content later, because I was thinking of preparing a tier list on the Frank clones, right? But a lot of them I don't know anything about, or very little about, so I need to do some research on that. But anyway, the purpose of today's video is to engage in like a comprehensive study of like what the Lycras are, and really like look at them in detail and try to see what trend lines we can pull out of this, and what we can learn and what theories we can put forth on them. So needless to say, this video is going to be extremely autistic. So if you're watching this video and heaven forbid enjoy it, you've clearly got like some sort of mental disorder. But anyway, before we get right into things, we gotta do a few disclaimers out of the way to just establish like what this video actually is. For one, this video does not intend to discuss anything outside of the main Filthy Frank canon itself. Like, there may be a video later on discussing the Lycras seen in various Frank clone videos, but this isn't the purpose of this video. We're just gonna be looking at the Filthy Frank show itself for this one. And then there was another one. Oh yeah. So also, we will not be discussing how Lycras come about, like how Lycras first came into being, or how they reproduce and how new Lycras are born, and that sort of stuff. Now, don't get me wrong, that stuff is important to get down and to understand, but that's not the focus of today's video. Alright? And now the last one, I think, and this is true for Neo-Filthy Frank, you know, in general, is that between, you know, the video canon of Filthy Frank and Francis of the Filth, we will be going with the videos where inconsistencies exist. And there are some inconsistencies. Not so much like literal inconsistencies, so there are a few of those, but more like thematic and implied inconsistencies, which are still very important. But when push comes to shove on those, we will be taking the videos as taking precedence over the book. Right, for example, the book does not suggest that Lycras are a discrete entity in the mythos, which I think the videos definitely do imply, and that is the model that we'll be working with. For example, if you've read the book, you'd know that Pink Guy is literally just a pink man, and Salamander Man is like just a big bipedal salamander. So that there's no like the Lycras as like a specific classifiable thing don't really exist, and I think it makes more sense to treat of them as if they do. And so that's what we'll be working with. And to end on, finally, like, another thematic inconsistency is that the book, Francis of the Filth, tries to imply that things are very ordered to an extent. Like, there's the tiers, and that everything goes within its box, and you can generally like classify things into different like boxes and categories and stuff. Whereas I think the Filthy Frank show itself doesn't imply that at all. The Filthy Frank show itself is extraordinarily chaotic. It's like incredibly grassroots. You know, like different entities just come out of like different patchworks of things, and there's very little rhyme or reason, I think, to where they come from. And as you're going to see, pulling out like some order to the madness is actually going to be pretty damn challenging. So with the disclaimers out of the way, let's get right into the first classifiable quality that we're going to look at. Okay, now coloration of the Lycras, at least to me, at least at first, didn't appear to be something that was at all significant, because it seemed very randomized. It seemed very chaotic, like we said, and it didn't seem like you could really say with any degree of certainty or reliability that Lycras were related to each other just because they were the same color. Nevertheless, after studying this pretty carefully, I did notice a certain observable trend, but it's pretty subtle, so we're going to go ahead and dissect it in depth here and talk about what it might mean. So, early in the Filthy Frank show, say maybe from the beginning to about 2014-ish, certain colors of Lycras emerged during this time. Those were white, red, black, brown, and gray. And these colors are different than the colors of lycras that emerged during later periods. And we're going to go ahead and go over these in depth. So, of the white lycras you had emerging during this time period, Towel Guy, who is one of the lycras who really we know almost nothing about. You had Salamander Man, you had Lemon, you had Dr. Trill. Now, for the black lycras, you had Black Friend, Barf Man, Mr. Magic Man, and Chin Chin / Creepy Dude. Creepy Dude is generally thought of as being Chin Chin, or at the very least, Chin Chin overtook him at some point and masqueraded as him. I think it's more likely that Creepy Dude was always just sort of a disguise for Chin Chin, so I generally count those as the same thing. But then for red lycras, you got Pink Guy, Red Ranger, and Red Dick. And Pink Guy is in this category because pink is a shade of red after all, right? And then for the gray lycras, you got Plastic Pinocchio and Alien Man. And then for the brown lycras, you got, the whole Negis dynasty. And then you have brown lycra, or the gatekeeper, if you remember that guy. Some people have suggested that brown lycra is in fact a Negi, but I don't really think so because Negis tend to have darker skin, not always, and they tend to have lack facial expressions. Maybe they're all stroke victims, I don't know. And brown lycra does not display those characteristics, so I don't really think he's a Negi, but I guess it's somewhat up in the air. So those colors were the colors of lycras that emerged during the early time period, and this is different than what we see later on. In 2016 to 2017, we don't really see lycras of those colors emerge anymore, except for the Negis, which are pretty much like eternal, because even during this time period, you still see new Negis popping up and appearing. But during the later time period, you actually see green and blue lycras appearing more often, because you got the Speed Lord, you got Green Cunt, you got Getter, who is like, I don't know if he's blue or green. I think they were doing some like autistic tinting during that video, so I couldn't really see, but one of those, turquoise, I don't know. And then the Tap Brothers, who are blue. So this shows like a shift. It shows that either there were certain colors that evolved earlier, and like green and blue are like more difficult, more advanced to evolve because they only appeared later on. Or it indicates that like the omniverse is shifting and it puts different selective pressures on different colors. And maybe there was something early on in the omniverse that favored the colors that we saw there, and then later on, since we don't see many of those individuals too much, and we definitely don't see any new ones appear, that maybe something shifted and now, green and blue are being favored somehow. So yeah, that's some food for thought. I probably think it's more likely that just green and blue evolved later. But let me know what you guys think. Either way, color seems to actually be something pretty tangible, and it seems to be something that doesn't always change that easily. Because it seems like it takes a while for certain new colors to emerge. And there's certain colors that we've never seen. There haven't been any purple lycras, for example, or anything like that, and this among some other ones. So yeah, that's the observation on coloration. Okay, so the next trait we're going to be looking at is complexity, or derivation. Now, this one is kind of unwieldy, it's kind of unintuitive, but we're going to try to take it slow and just unravel it, and again, see what we can learn from all of this. So, I made the observation, and maybe you have too, that there are certain lycras that are incredibly simple, or that they're incredibly basal, in that they have no defining characteristics really, other than that they are a lycra of a certain color. For example, this would be like the bottom tier of complexity. So Pink Guy, for example, would be in this tier, Barfman would be in this tier, Black Friend would be in this tier. Just lycras that are just, a lycra and don't really have anything else going on. And then above these, we have lycras that have slight modifications going on, arguably slight to no modifications, like Red Dick, he's got glasses, sometimes his lycra can recede a little bit. You got the Speed Lord, who's got, the lightning bolts on his cheeks. And then you've got people like Dr. Trill and Mr. Magic Man, who exhibit what appears to be inorganic fusage of sunglasses to themselves, but still overall pretty minor deviations, but deviations nevertheless. And then moving up beyond that, we have lycras that have several deviations going on, like brown lycra, for example. Because, you know, he's got hair and he's got the glasses. So there's clearly some kind of fusage going on here where aspects of the environment can come to sort of be incorporated within the being of lycras and affect their general makeup. So beyond this, we have lycras with significant fusage, typically significant organic fusage, not just inorganic fusage like sunglasses, but they actually like physically take on what appears to be like the physical, either the physicality or the DNA, among other things, but we'll get to that later, of certain other aspects. For example, like lemon, for example, he has characteristics of a lemon, and this is substantially influential throughout himself. And Salamander Man as well, who is as a salamander. And then in the final category, we have what I like to call the post-lycras, where I still consider them lycras, but they're lycras where their primary characteristic is no longer being a lycra. It's almost that they have taken on so many changes that they represent something else entirely. Like Alien Man, Red Ranger, and Captain Falcon, I would say, are good examples of this. So what can we learn from all this? Well, it might appear frustrating at first, but we do have to go with this because this is what we observe. That complexity does not scale with time. We do not see more complex lycras as time goes on. In fact, there seems to be no rhyme or reason to it at all, because we have post-lycras like Alien Man and Red Ranger showing up early in the timeline, but we have simple lycras like Negis and Speedlord, for example, appearing late into the timeline. So it appears that basal lycras and very derived lycras are not necessarily, one is not necessarily more advantageous than the other, because it seems like, again, we get like a patchwork of distinct ones. So what this actually indicates is that complexity probably evolves incredibly quickly, and that it doesn't take many generations for many changes to build up, and you're left with like a completely different thing than what you started out with just a little bit earlier, right? So, for example, like we have the whole Mr. Negis, right? And they have plant-like characteristics. That's an aspect of theirs that is different from just like a basal lycra. But Veggie Cunt and Lemon also have plant-like characteristics, but I think it would be disingenuous to suggest that those three are related. It seems more likely that this stuff just evolved independently of each other. Which brings us to the final conclusion, which, in addition to physical objects seemingly being able to fuse to lycras, and in addition to DNA of foreign objects also being able to incorporate themselves within lycras, I think that the actual driving force of this stuff is mimetic in nature. So the chromosomes and the nature of the omniverse has to work in some way that ideas and notions of things themselves can fuse to lycras and become them, or affect them greatly. So let's use lemon as an example. Lemon probably has substantial, lemon DNA within him, but more importantly, the idea of a lemon permeates within him on every level. What I mean by that is that, like, it's not like just a random white lycra fused to a lemon, right? Because then you'd just, I don't know, you'd see a yellow lump on his arm or something. No, the essence of a lemon runs through him, right? So that means the very idea of a lemon is what's being fused to him. So fusage is a pretty important characteristic, and that's basically what I take from this, and that's basically what I make of this. Complexity happens a lot quicker than color, and it seems a lot easier to change than color. So yeah, I guess that's pretty much it for my contributions on this subject. What do you guys think? Is there anything you disagree with? Is there anything you take issue with? Are there any extrapolations you'd like to make? Let me know what you guys think. I'd like to hear it. And yeah.